Welcome back to another installment of Super Smash Games Recommends. We have another NES game we'd like to discuss. If you'd like to see games for other consoles featured, please leave a comment below and let us know what system or game you'd like to see covered. Today's recommendation is for the action RPG title Crystalis. Crystalis? Well, however you pronounce it, this game was made by SNK. And like Kemco, they're not really known for RPGs, but rather fighting games like the King of Fighters series, Art of Fighting, or Samurai Showdown, and of course the Neo Geo home consoles. For a company that doesn't make a lot of RPGs, they really knocked it out of the park with this one. The game begins with an extended cutscene detailing the destruction wrought by a technologically advanced war. After humanity is nearly wiped out, civilization is slowly rebuilt, but technology is shunned. Animals have become mutated, aggressive monsters. Above it all, a floating tower looms, a last defense against the return of evil, but it fills the people with dread rather than hope. 100 years pass. A computer program awakens, opening a door through which the protagonist emerges, briefly frightening a villager. Who are you? What is your purpose? What connection do you have to these people or to the tower? These are the central questions in Crystalis. You head into town, where you are given a sword and some money to purchase provisions, as well as your first task. You need to get some armor, a shield, an antidote, and an alarm flute. The shield can safely be skipped for now, because it only provides protection against projectile attacks, and no enemy at the start of the game can do that. The antidote is pretty mandatory before adventuring into the first real dungeon of the game, however, since being poisoned in Crystalis is a speedy death sentence. You'll want to start your adventure by heading to the cave on the left side of the screen, killing enemies along the way. At this point, you'll have two forms of attack: a normal sword thrust, and if you hold down the attack button, a charge blast that shoots across the screen. Later, you'll find an orb that increases its power, and then a bracelet that will increase it even further at the cost of some MP. But for the first two power levels, it can be difficult to hit what you're aiming at, since you have to line the shot up just right. It certainly takes some getting used to. So a good strategy is to power up your sword, then walk around looking for something to fire it at. But even this is no guarantee. Especially early on, the normal thrust will be your friend. At any rate, head through the first cave. You'll notice there's no enemies in here. But there is Zeebo, the first of the wise men you'll meet on your journey. He tasks you with getting the windmill going, and promises to teach you a spell if you do. You won't be able to start the windmill if you don't talk to Zeebo first, even though he does nothing besides give you the task. If they wanted to force you to talk to Zeebo first, they should have just given him the alarm flute instead of making it a purchasable item. Anyway, head to the northeast and you'll see a windmill and a cave nearby. Inside the cave, once again, there are no enemies, but somehow there's a guy sleeping in here. Use the alarm flute to wake him up, and he'll give you a key to turn on the windmill. Why the windmill is turned off remains a mystery. Odder still, when you turn on the windmill, it blows up a solid mountainside, opening up an entrance to the first dungeon, which is in turn the only route to the next town. So the only way to get to the next town is to go through a dungeon that's only open some of the time. I guess it's just RPG logic. Nothing to do but roll with it. At this point, you can go back to Zeebo and collect your reward, a spell called Refresh that heals hit points, or you can just head for the first dungeon, since Zebu will magically appear at the entrance and teach you the spell. But he couldn't just teleport to go wake up that guy, huh? Anyway, the way that Refresh works is it takes a small amount of NP to heal your HP, so what you'll end up doing is just holding down the A button until your HP is fully restored or you run out of MP. As you make your way through the first dungeon, note the plethora of new enemies in this area. Seriously, there's like 5 new enemies. The worst ones are these pink little pudding puddles that can poison you. And the bats. The bats are more annoying than deadly, but they can definitely whittle away your hit points if you're not careful. They like to swoop around in an unpredictable pattern, ducking in to hit you and then flying away past the walls so you can't hit them back. Maybe it's just me, but Crystalis, while not being as tough as some of the notorious NES games, is still far from easy. Part of the problem is that your character's hitbox is larger than it should be, while the enemy's hitboxes are smaller. At any rate, you should find the first upgrade here, the Ball of Wind. Make sure to equip it. And it might be a good idea to leave the dungeon to save, because you'll soon be facing the first boss of the game. This one isn't too difficult. They don't even directly attack you, they just summon bats to do that for them. Blast them a few times with your upgraded sword shot and they'll be toast in no time at all. You might need to cast Refresh or use a medical herb to heal your hit points, however. You'll get some rabbit boots for your trouble. They let you hop around, really only useful for getting through a poisonous swamp that's after the next town. One thing I really love about Crystalis is the terrific soundtrack. Not only is the music really good, but there's quite a few songs on here. While the game has been favorably compared to the Legend of Zelda, I'm not sure it's a fair comparison. There is a better, deeper storyline and more involved gameplay, but it's kind of like comparing apples and oranges. They're definitely a bit similar, but the focus is different. Zelda is an action-adventure game, not an RPG, and there's more puzzle solving involved. I would say that if you liked Zelda, you should definitely give Crystalis a try.